Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and welcome to Rachel and Rosina as well. Madam Speaker, my question is to the Chief Minister. Chief Minister, in the Scrutiny Committee report into the Territory Coordinator Bill, the members Wanguri, Drysdale and Goyder, all government members, recommended that you set clear criteria for appointing the Territory Coordinator to be included in the legislation. The committee made it clear that the recommendation to strengthen transparency, accountability and parliamentary oversight. Chief Minister, you chose to ignore your government members on these recommendations and voted down the amendments to put in checks and balances in the system through the legislation. Chief Minister, you then appointed Stuart Knowles last week as the Territory Coordinator for the next 4 years without an open recruitment process. Chief Minister, how can you expect Territorians to have any faith in your integrity or transparency when you ignore your own members of government, refuse to exercise accountability in such a significant appointment for the Northern Territory?
Chief Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I welcome the question. And I'm actually really alarmed at the tact that the opposition leader is taking in attacking public servants. I'm not sure what the Territory Coordinator ever did to her or to Labor, but it's pretty unprecedented to have such attacks on someone who has been appointed appropriately, who has been given an interim role, facilitated all of the consultation, all of the development of the bill. Let's not forget, this legislation started as a discussion paper. We then circulated a draft. We then sent it to the Scrutiny Committee for months. We had there were public consultations right across the Northern Territory on this. I took this policy to the 2020 election. We tried to pass it in Parliament last term, and I took it to the 2024 election. And then at the conclusion of the bill, of which there is a framework for the appointment of the Territory Coordinator set out in the bill, as you were just talking about, I then appointed Stuart Knowles as a Territory Coordinator in accordance with the legislation, Madam Speaker. I'm not sure what it is the opposition are getting at. I don't know why they continue to pursue this narrative against public servants. I do not understand why they can't get behind the Territory Coordinator. I can understand if you don't like the policy. And we know you don't like the policy because you failed to grow our economy. You refuse to back in anything that is actually going to change the dial. But we're not here to deliver status quo. And yes, you can dislike the policy, that's fine, but play the policy, not the person, opposition leader. This has all been done exactly in accordance with the legislation, whether you like that or not.
What is your point of order, opposition leader?
Order 110 relevance, Madam Speaker. There were two parts to the question. Why did the Chief Minister ignore the Scrutiny Committee advice and recommendations, and why did she appoint the Territory Coordinator without an open recruitment process to a public service role?
I think you've made that very clear. Chief Minister.
I have answered this ridiculous question all of last... I mean, if you need other questions to ask me, I'm happy to write you some, because there is a lot going on in the Northern Territory that you're meant to be holding us accountable on. And at the end of the day, I appointed Stuart Knowles. As the interim Territory Coordinator. And then the legislation set out a criteria to undertake that appointment, and then that process was done and the administrator appointed him, and it goes in the Gazette and all of the official bits and pieces happen, and off you go. I really don't know what else you were trying to get at. It's like she's never been a minister before or never appointed someone herself. She knows the process. I know she wasn't very good at it, but she understands the process. Now, I can accept you don't like the Territory Coordinator as a policy because it's actually going to get things done in the Northern Territory, something Labor failed to do in a decade, Madam Speaker. But something you used to say to me, stop talking the Territory down. What is wrong with you? We are about to turn a corner for the Territory, and everyone in this chamber should be getting on board.
Chief Minister. Member for Wanguri, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Chief Minister. Our government has made it clear that community safety is our #1 priority. And that's what the people in my electorate of Wanguri want. They want to feel safe in their homes and when they go to the shops. Since coming to government just 8 months ago, we have strengthened our laws and given police more powers to fight crime and stop crime before it begins. Chief Minister, can you please update the House on how our government changes to the law and other reducing crime initiatives are helping to improve the safety on the ground and in our community?
Chief Minister.
Thank you so much, Member for Wanguri. I know you're a passionate advocate for your community, and people in Wanguri, like all Territorians, they just want to be safe. They want to live in a safe community. They want to send their kids to a safe school. They want to go to a safe shop, and they want to work in a safe environment. And everyone deserves that, Madam Speaker. And that's why as soon as we came to government in August, we were already drafting laws ready to go for that first October sittings, Madam Speaker. So, Member for Wanguri, I'd love to give your community a bit of an update on how that is all tracking. Of course, we passed Declan's Law, which strengthened not only bail but wanding for our police to remove knives and other sharp-edged weapons out of circulation. And I'm very proud to inform you, Member for Wanguri, that since October last year, our police have wandered 5,063 people, which is huge. And they seized, as a result of those operations, 99 weapons. Now, that's 99 crimes that may never have happened, Member for Wanguri. We'll never know the true impact of that wanding and the impact of deterring people from carrying weapons and committing crimes in the first place. Our ram raid legislation has seen 24 individuals charged with ram raid offencing. Our post and boast legislation has got 10 people before the courts right now, Member for Wanguri, and our nuisance public drinking, to make sure we're dealing with problem drinking in public places, 227 infringements have been issued to 216 individuals. So we're seeing some really good numbers coming through of that early legislation we passed in October. But of course we didn't stop. That was just the start. And we came back to Parliament just a couple of weeks ago to pass Australia's strongest bail laws. And we're already starting to see, anecdotally, that strengthening has worked. But there's so much more we need to do to make our community safe, Member for Wanguri. I wanted to let you know about our police, who do an amazing job. They're an incredible part of our community, and our record $1.5 billion investment into law and order this budget is going to go a long way. $608 million of that is for our police. But since September last year, our government has graduated 56 more constables, 23 more auxiliaries and 11 Aboriginal liaison officers, which is terrific. Between now and the end of the year, we are going to graduate another 128 police constables, another 8 auxiliaries, and we've also had 18 Aboriginal community police officers either transition to constable or they're on the pathway to transitioning to constable, which is incredibly exciting. And I'm very pleased to announce, Member for Wanguri, that when you compare the same period from last year to now, the FTE total of police is 53 more police than we had last year. So we will continue to put the rights of people to be safe above the rights of offenders, back in our police with better powers, the resources they need to do their job, because community safety is our #1 priority.
Opposition Leader, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Chief Minister. Chief Minister, a comprehensive consultation process which concluded less than 12 months ago found that 73% of Territorians support voluntary assisted dying, or VAD, and the laws for giving terminally ill Territorians the choice to die with dignity. Chief Minister, why has your government started another consultation process when we already have had one of the biggest consultations in the Territory's history on VAD? Chief Minister, why do you keep stalling on bringing this important matter to Parliament? And given the strong community support for progress on VAD laws and your support for a VAD bill when you were the opposition leader, Chief Minister, will you now support the drafting of a bill for the community to consider and consult on properly?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and that's a very good question, and it just shows that the opposition leader is not paying attention. Now, I want to take you back to something, because the report that Labor did was after 8 years of Labor being in government, Madam Speaker. So in the dying days of your government, you finally decided that VAD might be something you want to get around to. But you weren't that committed to it at all, actually. You created a committee to consult across the Territory, and yes, they spoke to a lot of people. But did they go out into your community? Were they out in Beswick? Were they out in Nooka? Were they out in Largemanu or Yuendamu? Absolutely not. Maningrida, you name it. They went up and down the spine. Now, that's great and that's important. Okay, they went to one remote community. Should I be clapping for that, Member for
the
Daly?
interjections, please.
The point is that report was something Labor did in the dying days of its government after 8 years of being in power. If it wanted to do that, it could have and it didn't, and you were part of that government. You were the Attorney General who would have brought the law to the Parliament, and you didn't. Point number one. Point number two, your report, which finalised well before the election, could have been acted on if you wanted to, and you didn't. Point number two is that consultation, in a lot of people's view, was limited. And point number three is that the LCAC, the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee, is the right vehicle in which to bring legislation to this Parliament on this issue and to do the consultation that was not done as part of your preparation paper that you did late last year. This is a very short time frame. They have until September to report back to the Parliament with drafting instructions. So your politicisation yesterday, where all of a sudden you've woken up and decided, oh great, I'm going to jump on this as some sort of hot button political issue, I'm going to draft my own legislation from opposition, is absolutely shameful. It makes a mockery of the importance of the issue, the respect that should be afforded to people who care passionately on both sides and all of the people in between who haven't really turned their mind to it at all, and that we need to proceed through this process to be having a piece of legislation that can be put to this Parliament that has credibility and integrity. Now, you running around saying that
Take
you're
a
going
seat,
to do
please,
it
Chief
is quite
Minister.
frankly disgraceful.
What's your point of order, Opposition Leader?
Thank you. 110 relevance. The Chief Minister is not answering the question, which is clearly around supporting the drafting of a bill to consider for the community.
I think she is answering the question,
Okay.
but please
You
continue,
are not
Chief
listening.
Minister.
The Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee is a committee of the Parliament. It has CLP members, it has Labor members, and it has opposition members. And what they are going to be doing is going around the territory looking at your report, looking at the previous legislation, looking at other jurisdictions, and speaking to the people who under Labor didn't get a voice and provide drafting instructions to the Parliament. That is a proper, respectful, consultative process, and if you want to run ahead and try and score cheap political points, you will be judged for that by the community. But we will stay the course on what is a robust and respectful process, which will be concluded by
Time has
September.
expired, Chief Minister. Member for Casuarina will be heard in silence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure. Minister, can you please discuss the purpose of your recently announced bus review and why it is necessary? Additionally, how does this extension fit into the broader review of the bus system? And what long-term benefits are expected for both passengers and drivers? Can you please update the House on the government's decision to extend free bus travel and how this initiative is helping improve safety and public confidence in the bus network? Minister.
Minister for Infrastructure and Logistics.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Casuarina for the question. And I know that he's a very strong advocate for his electorate on many matters, and in particular safety and wellbeing of Territorians. And we've had many discussions around the Casuarina Bus Exchange and the public network on very many occasions. And it's good to be able to do something about that, Madam Speaker. And of course, this week, Madam Speaker, we've announced that bus travel will remain free for another 12 months until June 2026. And Madam Speaker, this is just one initiative that forms part of our bus safety reform strategy. And this overhaul aims to streamline routes, ramp up safety and lift the whole experience on our public sector network with faster trips, safer journeys and a better deal for drivers and passengers alike. And Madam Speaker, on the free bus fares, let's not forget how we actually got there. Labor deliberately deceived Territorians nearly 12 months ago by claiming free bus tickets was a cost of living measure. However, the department, to their credit, were pretty quick to advise me in August 2024 that the ticket system had in fact malfunctioned under the previous government and many drivers were actually required to take cash payments. And as you can imagine, Madam Speaker, assaults and attempted robberies on drivers absolutely soared. Madam Speaker, that government put drivers at risk and in harm's way. Madam Speaker, we quickly took control of the issue and reached out to stakeholders like the TWU, a traditional constituent of those opposite, I might add, Madam Speaker. And we listened to their concerns, concerns that had fallen on deaf ears under Labor for many, many years, concerns about safety. And we took urgent action, Madam Speaker, to fix the problem, unlike the lazy, do-nothing response of those opposite. Within 100 days, we installed protective screens on every urban bus to keep drivers safe and continued the free ticketing system so drivers were not carrying cash and then exposed to further issues. Madam Speaker, and we didn't stop there. We've introduced a range of other safety measures, including direct radio links between drivers and the police, a driver's duress alarm for emergencies, more CCTV in problem areas and on-board buses, stronger powers for transit officers to deal with bad behaviour. Madam Speaker, these are real changes and real changes that will make a difference. This is a big leap forward, but it's only the start, Madam Speaker. Our next wave of reforms will tighten safety even further, upgrade the right infrastructure and make every public transport journey better for everyone. Our goal is to build a safer, more efficient public transport system for everyone, and we're listening to our community, Madam Speaker, and delivering.
Member for Daly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Public Service. Minister, before the election, the Chief Minister repeatedly promised there would be no public sector cuts as part of the CLP's commitment to voters. It has now been revealed that the government plans to remove redeployment options for public servants, laying the groundwork for widespread job cuts across agencies. Will you recommit to no public sector job losses, as the Chief Minister has promised multiple times? And will you guarantee that existing entitlements, such as work from home and flexible work arrangements, will not be cut by the CLP through an enterprise bargaining process?
Minister for Public Service.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Daly for the question. And this year there are a lot of enterprise bargaining agreements happening right across the OCPE, and the public service is certainly one of them. And we will not be making any cuts to the public service, Madam Speaker. And I don't know why the member for Daly seems to think that we are going to be cutting public servants. We certainly said that we would not be doing that before the election, and we will honour that promise. If there are people in the public service that their contracts come to an end and they don't get renewed, that is a matter for those departments. So at the moment, as I said, there are negotiations coming on. There are absolutely no cuts to the public service, and we maintain that those, and I do note the opposition leader interjecting constantly. The thing is, Madam Speaker, we stand by that commitment. We value our public service. We have great public servants that work right across.
Take your seat, Minister. What's your point of order, member for Daly?
Thank
She's
you.
got plenty of time if you're talking
relevance.
about relevance.
Yes,
She's
no, I
still
do.
got
But I
two-thirds of
do
her
appreciate.
response.
I will acknowledge the minister has answered one part of the question, so I do appreciate that from the minister. There was a second part of the question that I just wanted to make sure she was aware.
I think
so
she is
will she
aware.
ensure that existing entitlements such as work from home and flexible work arrangements will not be cut by the CLP through enterprise bargaining processes?
Okay, so she's got plenty of time and there'll be no more relevant points of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I think I've got more than enough time to answer the question. And as I was saying, there are many enterprise bargaining agreements happening at the moment right across the sector. We have fantastic public servants working in many of our departments right across the territory. So there's no problem for them in their job. There will be no cuts. And as those bargaining agreements go on, they are all things that I do note, Madam Speaker, that I have still got a minute 25 and the opposition leader is happy to waste my time and her time and the member for Daly's time by continually interjecting.
Opposition leader, you have not stopped interjecting throughout this question time. Please refrain from interjecting, and if you don't, you will be removed. And I wouldn't like to do that in front of your special guest. So please pay some respect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as those enterprise bargaining agreements go on, Madam Speaker, as I said, those fantastic public servants that we have doing great work right across the territory, that is something that will be discussed with them. No one's job will be lost. If there are work from home agreements that they wish to bring into the bargaining, that is up to that bargaining process, and there is a process through all of these agreements. So that is something that will happen in due course, and I look forward to all of these agreements happening right across this year, Madam Speaker. Well, the first of the agreements started in 3rd of February this year, and they are continuing to roll out throughout this year, and as I said, there's 8 of them. Thank you.
Supplementary question. Member for Daly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Minister, you said no public servants will be cut. Does that include CEOs' positions as well, and also ensuring, is it a yes or no answer, for the work from home, flexible work arrangements won't be cut?
Minister, you have the call.
Thank
to
you
answer
very
it
much,
how you
Madam
wish.
Speaker, and it's a yes or no. It's a yes or no, member for Daly. The enterprise bargaining agreements will go on, and I'm not sure what crystal ball you're looking in to see that maybe a CEO's job will be going, but I can assure you that no CEO's job is going. That I am aware of at the moment. So in answer to the question, Madam Speaker, no, there's enterprise bargaining agreements that go on. That is up for the those agreements to take their course. They are all had in good faith. And as far as I'm aware, those agreements will continue on, and they are all part of the process, and we will find out what the wash-up of that is when they end, Madam Speaker, and I'll let the House know.
Member for Fanny Bay, what is your question? Silence, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education and Training. Minister, under the previous Labor government, crime was out of control, population growth was down, and the Territory struggled not only to attract but struggled to keep teachers. Minister for Education, I have 7 education precincts in my electorate, and I know that all of us here in the chamber agree that education is the cornerstone, the absolute foundation for change in the Northern Territory. The CLP took a commitment to the last election to give teachers financial certainty by moving them off short-term contracts into permanent places so that they can have the confidence to put down roots in the Territory, supporting our aim to increase the population. Minister, can you please outline to the House what actions the CLP government has taken to deliver certainty and security to the Territory's current and prospective teachers?
Minister for Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Fanny Bay for her question. And yes, coming into the election, we had a commitment to attract and retain teachers here in the Territory and take them off short-term contracts. Under the former Labor government, we saw that the Territory did have a poor reputation, Madam Speaker, and crime was out of control. And so what we want to make sure that these teachers know that when they come here to the Territory, that is just a perception that was under Labor and was detrimental to the people that were moving here. So we want teachers to move to the Territory, Madam Speaker. We have the highest paid teachers here in the Territory, and we want them when they come here to feel safe. And we want them to move here, put down roots. Never know, Madam Speaker, they might pick up one of our home builder options that we have that are actually going for a further 12 months as well, because we want people to move here and stay here in the Territory. We know that the Treasurer just had the budget last week, and that budget had a strong crime focus, Madam Speaker. So we are reversing Labor's weak on crime legacy and doing what we can, and we've done a lot in the 9 months short that we've been here so far, Madam Speaker, to make sure that Territorians' lives are safe. We're committing to keeping people safe, and this budget includes important financial measures to keep and attract teachers. As I said, we took that plan to the election, member for Fanny Bay, to give the teachers financial security by moving them off their short-term contracts and into permanency. So $13.8 million, Madam Speaker, is increasing the permanent classroom teacher workforce, and will give current and prospective teachers certainty and confidence to put down roots and stay here in the Territory. Our government's commitment, Madam Speaker, is to increase the permanent classroom teacher workforce to 75% by 2027, and we are well on our way to achieving this. 69% of classroom teachers at the moment are permanent employees, and this is an increase of 6.7% compared to the same time last year. So, Madam Speaker, our government, the Finocchiaro government, on our year of action, certainty and security for the education system, we want to make sure that we're delivering a record $1.6 billion spend in education and giving schools funding certainty by funding schools off enrolment and not attendance as well. And we're taking action to give our hardworking teachers the employment certainty. So we will continue, I will continue to work with education and make sure that these teachers are moved off their short-term contracts into permanency, and we need to make sure, Madam Speaker, to turn the territory around, we need kids to get into school and start in their meaningful education pathway to employment.
Member for Daly, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Public Service. Minister, last week the member for Karama urged you to take advantage of natural attrition and not renew executive contracts in the public service. Minister, how many executive contract positions have you created since coming to government, including the 4 new CEO positions, and how many of these positions remain funded in the budget handed down last week?
Minister for Public Service.
Hello.
I might just ask the member for Daly just to repeat the first bit of that question, Madam Speaker.
Certainly.
Just noting the clock was counting down and we haven't had any time for her to answer. Could we take it back to 3 minutes?
That's not your call, Member for Daly.
Oh, that's what I'm asking.
You've been asked to repeat the question. You don't have to if you don't want to. You can go back to the Minister.
Okay, thank you, Speaker. I'll go back to the start of the question. Minister, last week the member for Karama urged you to take advantage of natural attrition and not renew executive contracts in the public service. Minister, how many executive contract positions have you created since coming to government, including the 4 new CEO positions, and how many of those positions remain funded in the budget handed down last week?
Minister.
With the employees in the public service, we are wanting those casual people that are on contract. We want them to move to permanent employees. I'm not sure the premise of the question because I've just answered a question previously about the same thing. We value the public service. We have many good public servants out there doing great work each and every day. And as I said, we are getting teachers off short-term contracts into permanent spaces, and we are doing that right across the public service, Madam Speaker.
Take your seat, Minister. What's your point of order, Member for Daly? You have asked the question twice. So
but she did say she doesn't understand.
There's plenty of time on the clock.
She did say she doesn't understand the premise of the question, so I thought I'd just put it again.
No, take your seat.
So
That's
she said,
not
how many
a point of
executive
order.
contracts,
Take your
positions?
seat. Take your seat.
Yeah,
Minister,
so
if you can't answer the question, you can take your seat too.
Madam Speaker, I understand the premise of the question, but I'd already asked it. We are actually, as I said, we have amazing public servants out there. We are making sure that they are coming off short-term contracts into permanency. We are doing that through education. We're doing that right through departments out there. So I think I've answered the question in the previous question.
Member for Fong Lim, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mine is an intelligible question to an intelligent minister. Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Infrastructure and Logistics. Minister, last week I tabled a petition in Parliament on behalf of the students from Haileybury Randall School and its surrounding community expressing concern about the proposed Berrimah Road duplication project and its potential impacts on the surrounding area. Impacts on safety, impacts on the environment, impacts on private infrastructure and investment plans for a range of stakeholders in that area. Minister, I note that local businesses in the area have also raised significant concerns about this duplication project and how it could affect access to their premises and disrupt day-to-day commercial operations. Minister, my constituent petitionees and I are delighted to learn that this duplication project has been removed from the current budget infrastructure program. Minister, can you please advise us as to the insight that you can provide on why you've made this decision?
Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Fong Lim for this question. And again, I've spent some time with the member for Fong Lim out in his electorate, and the key stakeholders in that area made it very, very clear that this road duplication, Madam Speaker, was not something that they supported, and I certainly listened where the opposite people in this chamber never did. And I visited the Haileybury Rendell School with the member for Fong Lim a number of weeks ago to hear what their concerns were and listen to the students who had concerns, as well as the teachers and the principal and members of the board. And they raised some very serious and very valid points, Madam Speaker. And also local businesses in this area and along Berrima Road had had enough as well. They've borne the brunt of delays, disruptions and detours caused by the Tiger Brennan overpass's chaotic planning for almost 2.5 years, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, their lifeline and access to their customers was cut off, and their profits in their businesses suffered immeasurably. And Madam Speaker, that is absolutely unacceptable. And Madam Speaker, this ends now. We will not allow our hard-working local businesses to be the collateral damage in bureaucratic mismanagement. They deserve absolutely better. And I pick up on the interjections from the opposition leader. She obviously doesn't care too much about business and the development of the territory. She should have a bit of a listen to what I've got to say. Madam Speaker, the CLP government stands with our businesses and we do not get in their way. Icons of our territory community like Tomo's Pies depend on steady traffic, reliable access and a government that listens. When I told them this project was off the table, they were extremely relieved. And let me tell you, Madam Speaker, if you hadn't had a Tomo's Pie recently, I suggest you get down there. I shared some with my office yesterday and I can tell you what, Madam Speaker, I'll be back for more. They are that good. But I've also heard from the school and nearby businesses who have been waiting to invest their own hard-earned money into private development and access upgrades. But this proposed project created ongoing uncertainty and made them put their plans on hold. Madam Speaker, this government will not block private investment the way that Labor has. We talk about being open for business and, Madam Speaker, we absolutely mean it. To the Haileybury Rendell community and local businesses, I've heard you. The CLP has heard you. Your safety, your environment and your future investments, they all matter to us. And Madam Speaker, today we draw a line in the sand. No more disruptions. We are giving them action, we are giving them certainty and we are giving them security, Madam Speaker. We will be putting local businesses first. We will be putting them where they belong, number one, Madam Speaker.
Expired, Minister. Member for Arafura, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This also is a question to an intelligent minister. Minister.
Which one?
Minister for Multicultural Affairs. There you go. Sorry. Yeah. Minister, in the budget handed down last week, the Multicultural Grants Program was cut by $150,000. Targeted funding for events and activities to promote and celebrate our multicultural community was reduced by $15,000. Minister, which multicultural events would you like to see cut and which events do you feel are deserving less funding?
Minister for Multicultural Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thanks for Member for Arafura for this question. So I'm not aware of what funding is he referring that we have cut from the recent budget, whereas we have increased the budget. We announced $1.5 million for the Catherine Multicultural Facility. There is more than $5 million that we announced for the Alice Springs Multicultural Facility, which was not on the previous budget. That means there are increase in millions of budget for the multicultural, and it's around I think $2 million that we will be doing in the grant funding as well. There may be some movements of the dollar figures, but overall, when it comes to the multicultural allocation, it has increased by millions. And I don't know what the opposition is trying to say that I think we are reducing the funding for the multicultural. And in fact, I can say about I think there are representation of 4 members on this side from the multicultural community in the Northern Territory, and we will be a strong voice for the multicultural community members of the Northern Territory, which is around 30% of the population of the Northern Territory. So I want to reassure the member for Arafura, whatever the information you've been told by other colleagues is incorrect. We have increased the funding, not decreased the funding.
Member for Goyder, what is your question?
Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Agriculture and Fisheries. Minister, the Northern Territory plays a crucial role in protecting Australia from biosecurity risks that could devastate the economy. Unlike the previous Labor government, which neglected the Territory's agriculture sector, this government is committed to prioritising investment, strengthening biosecurity and revitalising our economy through agribusiness projects. Minister, could you please tell the House about the ongoing mock animal disease outbreak, Exercise Raintree, and how it will strengthen and enhance our capacity to prevent and manage emergency animal disease incursions?
Minister for Agriculture and Fisheries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Goyder for the question because he knows how important the agribusiness is to our economy. In fact, Madam Speaker, I can just remind the House that the agribusiness sector is valued at approximately $1.3 billion. $1.3 billion annually to our economy. And, Madam Speaker, we know if there's an outbreak of an exotic or an emergency disease, that will devastate the industry. And we cannot afford that, Madam Speaker. The Territory agribusiness is booming. We know there's already been a setback when the federal Labor government stopped the live export. Absolutely devastated the industry, and they did it on the other side. Their party devastated our industry, and it still hasn't settled, Madam Speaker. Years and years. In fact, I think the person who started it has passed away. And this Labor government have failed Territorians because that's how important this is. We all have a role, Madam Speaker, to play in Australia's biosecurity, and we know how important it is to keep the Northern Territory North free from these diseases. We know these diseases exist just to the north of us, not far away, Madam Speaker, and we need to make sure that we're ready for any biosecurity outbreak in the Northern Territory, because it will be absolutely devastating for the Northern Territory and for Australia, Madam Speaker. So we need to make sure Madam Speaker, that we are ready for it. So, Madam Speaker, my department, along with the Commonwealth, are right now conducting an exercise, a mock exercise, where one of these terrible diseases has been brought to the Territory and there's an outbreak. So that's what this is doing, Madam Speaker, because we know the 4 Ps, Madam Speaker: preparation prevents poor performance. So we're preparing for it because we need to make sure that if one of these diseases come to the Northern Territory, we're ready. We're prepared because we want to make sure we have a great performance and fix it and deal with it immediately, Madam Speaker. It is vitally important that we get ready for it and we get this exercise. So what we're doing is sharpening up the tools to keep it, to maintain it and to deal with it, Madam Speaker. And practice makes perfect, and that's what we're doing. Australia remains free from these animal diseases, including lumpy skin, foot and mouth, and we must be vigilant. We must make sure that if there is an outbreak, we can hear about it very quickly and we do our best to either maintain it or get rid of it or eradicate it, because if we don't, Madam Speaker, like I've said many times, it will be devastating. Madam Speaker, if there's a large outbreak of one of these diseases into Australia, it could cost the Australian economy $52 billion over 10 years. And we know how important the federal economy is to us because they give us money to pay our wages, to pay for the police, to pay for the education, Madam Speaker. It is important that we support the biosecurity and we focus and we strengthen the conditions and we get ready to move forward to be able to contain and manage an outbreak if it happens here. And the results will be devastating, Madam Speaker.
Member for Nightcliff, what is your question?
My question is for the Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure. Sorry. Minister, the Middle Arm Petrochemical and Gas Export Hub currently relies on $1.9 billion of tax handout from the federal government because gas companies don't want to put their hands in their own pockets, instead relying on everyday people to pay for them to take our gas for free. On top of this public money, we've now seen the CLP budget an increase from $5 million to $14.5 million per year for Middle Arm within the Logistics and Infrastructure budget. Minister, given your government's latest business case for the Middle Arm Gas Export Hub was rejected by Infrastructure Australia last year, how can you justify this tripling of funding to the project? And Minister, when will the EIS for Middle Arm be released? And have you resubmitted the Stage 3 business case to Infrastructure Australia?
Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure.
I thank the member for Nightcliff for the question. I love to stand up and talk about Middle Arm. And member for Nightcliff, I wish I had $1.9 billion, but that's what the previous coalition promised for the project. And when they lost the election and Labor got in, previous to just most recent election, they dropped that to $1.6 billion. So they took $300 million off it pretty well straight away. And Madam Speaker, they moved that money into equity into Infrastructure Australia to provide for that middle arm project. Now, and this is not about spending money and providing assets to the private industry, as the member for Nightcliff explains. This is about providing the infrastructure works and that area for a number of different proponents who are delivering outcomes for the Territory. Now, the initial EIS was put in, yes, some time ago, and it's the first time an EIS of this magnitude has been done in conjunction with the federal government. And there was difficulties in doing it, and I will admit that, Madam Speaker. The department has gone back to redo the EIS after consultation with the federal government as to what it should look like and how it should work, because we want to make sure that proponents coming to use Middle Arm that all the hard work is done first. It's something that the previous government probably failed to do on a number of occasions, is to get that enabling work done so that when business and proponents want to come here, they have certainty that they will be able to get their project off the line. And that's what we're doing with Middle Arm and this large EIS. So the EIS will cover the entire Middle Arm precinct. So when that's completed and approved by the federal government, then proponents who want to come and set up business, set up shop on Middle Arm, depending on what they want to do. There are a number of different projects that want to come there and develop the Middle Arm precinct for the benefit of all of us. They will have that certainty that they can come in and they have a environmental impact plan done, so that allows them to come in and set up and get on with their project.
Minister, take your seat. What's your point of order, member for Nightcliff?
Thank you. Just relevance, just the other parts of the question. I appreciate your answer so far on the EIS. Is there a date, or do you know when that will be released? But also the other part was the business case was rejected last year. Have you resubmitted the Stage 3 business case yet to Infrastructure
Minister,
Australia?
you have the call.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I know that the EPA federally are still working through the EIS. We're hoping to see the outcome of that later this year. And the sooner the better, so we can get that certainty for that project. And only just this week, Madam Speaker, we announced the infrastructure corridor, and that infrastructure corridor also supports the work at Middle Arm. So for all those proponents through the Beetaloo and others who are looking to use that infrastructure corridor, because it's not just for gas, it's also for water, it's also for fibre optics, there's a number of things that can go in that corridor.
Oh. Member for Nightcliff, what is your point?
Sorry, the question, I appreciate the answer so far, but just not, I didn't ask about the corridor. Can you please just let us know if your department has resubmitted the Stage 3 business case? Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'll go back. I said the corridor is underway. That corridor supports what Middle Arm will be. So that's that all-important work to link all of those projects together. Now, I know that the department is working on that submission. It will be going to the federal government, and hopefully we'll have an answer by the end of this year.
Member for Blaine, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the great Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure. Minister, with the current Northern Territory Government funding agreement for the Milk Run up for renewal, what specific measures is the CLP government considering to ensure uninterrupted regional air connectivity beyond that date? And importantly, what is the long-term goal of this scheme? How does the government plan to balance the necessity of continued funding with the stated long-term goal of achieving economic sustainability and reducing reliance on subsidies without compromising the accessibility of essential transport services? Thank you.
Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And look, I thank the member for Blaine for this very important question. And let me be very clear, Madam Speaker, crystal clear. The Milk Run will not be left in limbo under the country Liberal government. Not like the previous government, who I said in this chamber, I think earlier in the year, Madam Speaker, who didn't fund it past June this year. They didn't fund the Milk Run. So for all those people in Katherine and Tennant Creek utilising that service, the previous Labor government did not fund that ongoing. And I can confirm today, Madam Speaker, that the CLP will extend the current funding agreement for the milk run provider, Air North that is, for another 12 months while we finalise a wider overhaul of the Territory's transport system. So we're giving certainty, Madam Speaker, to those people in Katherine and Tennant Creek who utilise that service, and it's also certainty for business too, now that that area is expanding. And Madam Speaker, this extension will carry the service beyond 30 June 2025, giving residents and businesses in Katherine, Alice Springs and Tennant and other milk run stops a certainty that their vital airlink will keep flying. And why are we doing it, Madam Speaker? Well, Madam Speaker, it's because these flights are more than a timetable. They are economic arteries, Madam Speaker. And those arteries are pumping harder, Madam Speaker. In the first 9 months of this financial year, passenger numbers have jumped nearly 50%. Proof that demand is real and growing in our regions. More tradies are getting to jobs, more medical staff are reaching clinics, more families are staying connected, and that activity will flow straight into our local economies, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, our job is not just to write cheques. The extension gives us the breathing space to do three particular things. And the first is to refresh the remote and regional aviation framework so that subsidies target genuine market gaps. We need to line up new partnerships, whether that is mining charters from Perth or freight backloading arrangements to lift revenue and drive down per-seat costs, Madam Speaker. And of course, we need to integrate the milk run with our broader transport reforms. Things like single booking portals. Again, aligning those freight schedules and common fuel purchasing can save operators money and passengers time, and we'll be exploring how these things can be delivered to make the service easy to use and more reliable. Madam Speaker, our destination is a network that can stand on its own 2 feet. That, coupled with the work this government is doing to bring more and cheaper flights to the Territory, will not only provide us with the people we need to work, but will stimulate our tourism and economy more broadly. And Madam Speaker, until we get there, this government will keep planes in the air because opportunity should never be grounded by distance. And we said we support our regions, Madam Speaker.
Member for Johnston, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think my question is for the Minister for Infrastructure. It's in relation to the Fidelity Fund, the Master Builders Association's Fidelity Fund. Who would that sit with? The Treasurer? No, yourself. Minister Burgoyne, can the Minister provide an update on the impact of the Master Builders Association's Fidelity Fund and the Homegrown Territory Grant Scheme on the local construction industry, and how the government is ensuring continued support for local builders and homeowners under these initiatives? Thank you.
Minister for Lands, Planning and Environment.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Johnston for the question. The Master Builders NT Fidelity Fund was established in 2013 to provide consumer protection to owners of new homes and units up to 3 stories in height, Madam Speaker, in the event that a builder dies, disappears, becomes insolvent or is no longer registered. This is to ensure that those that are building their homes are covered up to a certain amount if that builder leaves, as I've said, disappears, becomes insolvent. The fund does this through issuing fidelity certificates for each new home to provide completion cover for consumers by providing 20% of the contract price to a maximum of $200,000, Madam Speaker. And I know since becoming Minister we've been ensuring that anyone that is left in the lurch by their builder has that measure of cover that are covered through this insurance scheme. This covers the cost of changing contracts, building permits and potential increases in costs associated with materials and labour. The fund is operated by trustees with administrative support contracted from Master Builders NT. Since the fund was established, it has settled a total of 70 claims for homeowners whose homes were at various stages of completions when a trigger event occurred, Madam Speaker. And those trigger events, as I spoke about, becomes insolvent, disappears, can no longer complete the project. I'm aware of current industry concerns, Madam Speaker, regarding the operation of the fund, and I've been speaking to many builders since coming into government about how we can improve the Fidelity Fund and ensure that the concerns that those in the construction industry have. As a member for Johnston may or may not know, I was an electrician by trade. I work with many builders, and many of them would often chat to me about the Fidelity Fund and how we could improve the Fidelity Fund and streamline those processes. The Department of Lands, Planning and Environment is also working with the fund and the other Northern Territory agencies to provide advice on any potential improvements to the fund or on its administering legislation for the government's consideration. One of the big things that people have been speaking to me about, Madam Speaker, is at the beginning of the year, you essentially have to put in for how many homes you expect to build in that year. If you can get cover for 6 homes, let's say that's $3 million in cover at $500,000 a house. As soon as you are building 6 homes and we get another person coming to you wanting to build their home, you're not covered to build that house. How can we ensure going forward that there's rolling cover? So as soon as you've finished the first of 6 homes, you can then build another one. Because right now what builders are telling me loud and clear is that they're having to go back to the Fidelity Fund to get further cover. And until they are able to complete homes, in some cases, Madam Speaker, that cover isn't granted. So I genuinely appreciate the question, Member for Johnson. This is something that our government is working on to improve for builders and for home owners right across the NT.
Member for Karama, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Chief Minister. Chief Minister, National Volunteer Week 2025 is being celebrated across the Northern Territory this week, recognising the vital contributions of volunteers in our communities. And I, like all of my colleagues here, are wearing the badge of the emergency services today proudly. Here in the Territory, we are all too often challenged by Mother Nature. Whether it is cyclones in the wet or fires in the dry, we need people that are willing to roll up their sleeves in our times of need. Volunteers play a critical role in our emergency services, often putting themselves on the front line to protect lives and property during these times. Chief Minister, can you please advise the House on how the Northern Territory Government is recognising and supporting the incredible work of our emergency service volunteers during National Volunteer Week and how Territorians can get involved? Thank you.
Chief Minister.
Thank you very much, Member for Karama, and I know you're a passionate supporter of volunteers across the Territory, but especially in your electorate, and you yourself are a volunteer with one of your constituents, of course, Tajinder Singh and his family run the food van, and they've been delivering food for vulnerable people in your electorate for 15 years, and I know you, I know the member for Barkly, I know the member for Wanguri and the member for Fanny Bay have been out with you volunteering, and volunteering is such an iconic part of being Territorian. I think the Malak community markets are starting again soon, Member for Karama, and of course, if it wasn't for the amazing volunteers, that beautiful Saturday night market would just not be able to happen. So I wanted to give a big shout out to Sachi Hirama and May Agabayo, who are the volunteers who make that all happen. But there are amazing people right across the Territory, like Andrew Kent, who has been a Darwin Lion Club member for 30 plus years, delivering the iconic beer can regatta, which again, something so special and iconic to the Territory that could never happen without the tireless work of volunteers. And so the people that contribute to the Northern Territory through volunteering are just amazing. And today of all days is Wow Day, and we are wearing our Northern Territory Emergency Services badge. We went out in the mall today to meet with emergency services workers and volunteers, and Paddy Platypus was there, who we love, to say thank you. And across the Northern Territory Emergency Services, we have hundreds of volunteers. There are over 800 emergency services volunteers in the Northern Territory, and we are thanking people no matter where you volunteer or where you are through award ceremonies. We had our ceremony last night in Alice Springs. We've got one coming up on Friday, Member for Karama, and there's going to be a fantastic community barbecue here in Darwin, and in Alice Springs there's the famous tug of war competition that always happens. But just in my portfolio alone, Member for Karama, you know, the NT Fire and Rescue Service has about 260 volunteers. We've got around 200 in emergency services across 20 units across the Territory. Bushfires NT, people that absolutely relied on, particularly out in the bush, and we've just put 2 new Bushfires NT staff out in the Barkly. We've got about 400 volunteers in Bushfires NT alone. And so on behalf of our entire government, I just want to thank everyone for their countless hours of volunteer work. It's what makes so much of being Territorian special. From our seniors who do incredible work, to our service clubs like Probus and Lions, to all of the people involved in emergency services, or those quiet volunteers who are just out doing important things in our community, and it's always without fanfare, it's always without wanting thanks. But I tell you what, this National Volunteers Week, member for Karama, our government is saying thank you to every single Territorian for their tireless efforts. Thank you.
Member for Daly, what's your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. Minister, last week you denied there had been any government directive to not call code yellows at Royal Darwin Hospital, contradicting the respected AMA-NT President, Dr Rob Parker. Yet, the very next day, on Mix 104.9, you admitted there are significant and ongoing pressures at Royal Darwin Hospital, which the CEO regularly contacts you about. Code yellows are a vital tool for hospital management during periods of peak demand. Minister, if there are ongoing pressures at the hospital, why aren't code yellows being called? Is it to avoid public scrutiny of your government's management of the health system?
Minister for Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Daly for his question. And I think I've already answered this question. I think it was last week. Perhaps the member for Daly doesn't like the answer that he's getting because, Madam Speaker, the staff at the Royal Darwin Hospital are absolutely doing an incredible job. Absolutely incredible when it comes to delivering services on the front line. We're backing, we're supporting, and we're following our frontline workers. They're doing the job that we expect of them. So to come in here today and hear the member for Daly casting doubt over our frontline workers is absolutely appalling. Absolutely appalling that he would come in here and cast doubt over our frontline workers at the Royal Darwin Hospital, also at Palmerston, that are out there doing the job that everybody expects, often under serious and difficult circumstances. Throughout 23 and 24, we know that the Royal Darwin Hospital experienced a number of operational pressures, and code yellows became quite common under the Labor government. And I've answered this before, but the situation at the hospital has, we do see pressures on frontline workers in the hospital. What I can say is that what we've been doing, we haven't been doing what Labor's been doing, and that's calling code yellows. What we've been doing is ensuring that we've got resources on the front line, delivering services and responding when there's pressures in the casualty area at the emergencies. So, with the change of leadership, Madam Speaker, our CEO is quite, where there are pressures on the front line, he goes to the hospital. He goes there, gets on the front line, works with the staff, talks with the staff and ensures that there's sufficient resources available to deal with the pressures that the hospital is facing. That's the difference, Madam Speaker. We're dealing with the problems, not calling code yellows. When it comes to calling code yellows, that is entirely the responsibility of the CEO. There has been no directions given by anybody when it comes to calling code yellows at the Royal Darwin Hospital. There's been careful planning, careful monitoring, daily vigilance, and what we call huddles. Daily huddles where the team gets together to look at what's going on in the emergency area at the hospital, making plans, bringing in resources and dealing with the problems as they arise. So for the member for Daly to come in here today and cast doubt over our hard-working frontline workers is nothing but appalling. There are no directions around code yellows. We've got people on the ground responding, and I thank them very much for the work they do.
Member for Drysdale, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, since we're using adjectives for our ministers today, my question is to the very handsome Minister for Housing, Local Government and Community Development. Minister, I understand that the Northern Territory Government was the first government jurisdiction in Australia to commence operations of an Aboriginal interpreter service. On the 10th of April 2000, that's the CLP government, the Northern Territory and Australian governments released a joint statement to fund the Aboriginal interpreter service to provide crucial services for people who do not speak English as a first language. Can you tell us, Minister, about the importance of the Aboriginal interpreter service and what work it does in the Northern Territory to empower Aboriginal communities and residents.
Minister for Housing, Local Government and Community Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for Drysdale for this important question. And what a great opportunity to talk about our Aboriginal interpreter service, because as the member for Drysdale said, we've recently celebrated the 25th anniversary of the Aboriginal interpreter service to recognise the individuals who've contributed to the service over those 25 years. And I must say that being at the celebration in Alice Springs and just meeting face-to-face the interpreters and hearing about the incredible work that they've been doing for a number of years was just outstanding to be there and be amongst people that are out there on the front line, supporting people, providing that essential communication, two-way communication, so that people understand what's happening in a range of different forums. Since it was established in 2000, AIS has provided crucial services for people who do not speak English as a first language to understand health, housing and legal services. Interpreters are there in our courtrooms, they're in the hospitals, they're out in call centres and other key services, making sure people understand and are understood. As well as providing an interpreter service, AIS also contribute to many strategic partnerships. We now have interpreters based in the Joint Emergency Services Call Centre, supporting call takers with Aboriginal language speaker emergency calls under a recent partnership with the Northern Territory Police. This is an incredible achievement and significant service for our community. Being able to ring 000 and communicate in your first language improves caller engagement. Another exciting partnership is the Norforce Interpreter Employment Pathway Program with the Australian Defence Force, which provides the opportunity for Norforce soldiers to become trained interpreters. During its 25-year history, AIS has grown to about 60 ongoing staff and over 230 contracted interpreters, providing a service across 39 Aboriginal languages. Both Territory and Australian governments continue to jointly fund AIS, and I'm advised that the NTG provides $2.1 million annually and the Australian government injects $8.5 million per year from 2025-26 under the NT-RAI agreement, which is a total of $842.6 million funding package. Madam Speaker, AIS is the only fully funded accredited Aboriginal interpreter service in the Territory, providing meaningful employment for hundreds of Aboriginal Territorians. Interpreter roles create economic independence, build cultural pride and offer long-term employment. Madam Speaker, last month's celebrations honoured and celebrated interpreters, including Heather Rosas, who is based in Tennant Creek in my very hometown. What an incredible amount of work she's done. Valda Shannon, Rosemary Plummer, all from Tennant Creek and the Barkly electorate who have been part of the interpreter service for many, many years. Thank you to all interpreters for the work that you're doing. And Madam Speaker, I move that any further questions be placed on the written question paper.